Hello, beautiful people. It's October, and while for some people that might mean it's spoopy time, for artists like me, that means it's time for Inktober. I'm doing my best to try out new technology along with my usual challenges of art. And that means I'm not only streaming, but attempting to record. Oh my. And after a lot of technological ups and downs, I think I'm actually even recording a voiceover. Guys, tell me if it's working. Maybe that's the spooky part. So, it's day 10. Sadly, that means that I have missed days 1 through 9, at least for recordings. So, you guys will just have to keep up with me for later videos. Day 1 was an antelopine kangaroo. Day 2 was a black swan. Day 3 was a cassowary. Day 4 was a dingo. Day 5 was a echidna. Day 6, a flying fox. Day 7, a gala cockatoo. Day 8, a house mouse. Day 9, an ibis. And day 10, I actually don't know how to pronounce that completely. Jobi Manucode? Manucode? Not quite sure. You might notice a little bit of a trend there. My big challenge to myself this Inktober is I'm actually trying to do an alphabet. Starting off with an alphabet of Australian animals, since I've been doing a little bit of travel over there recently. Sadly, I haven't actually seen the Jobi, much as I'd like to. But I figured I would give them a shot to give a nod for our little crow-like critters. So, there are corvids over there, crows and ravens, and a lot of others, but you might have noticed the sea was already taken up by the cassowary, and well, that's going to be a secret for later. So, I chose the Jobi as my J to sort of give a little stand-in. The Jobi is actually pretty cool. It's not a corvid at all. This little bird is actually a bird of paradise. And Australia, New Guinea, New Zealand, and the like have quite a few of them. In real life, these guys have gorgeous iridescent feathers. But since this is Inktober, well, at least for the moment, you're just seeing pencil lines. Whenever I'm doing a real-life animal, I like to take some time before doing any quote-unquote real work to do some studies. I never want to spend more than a minute or two on each individual animal if I can, but sometimes I like to spend a little bit more time. So if you take a look at my process, I start off trying to block in the rough shape. The idea behind that is so that way I can kind of keep the right proportions, and I can go in later and add more and more details. I'm less interested in all of the exact details. I'm not going to worry about each individual feather or where the light shines, at least not on this stuff, because, well, again, Inktober. But I am going to look at posture, I'm going to look at toes, I'm going to look at eyes and beaks. Because what I'm trying to do is get as much of the character of the animal as possible. Simple things like eye placement will give you a lot of idea about a creature. Predators tend to have forward-facing eyes, and prey tend to have eyes off to the side. Omnivores are a little bit in the middle. While I was studying these guys, at least the photos of them, there's a lot of snapshots of them sort of doing a cute little head tilt. And that sort of exemplifies how they look at the world. They're sort of reaching their neck out past their center of balance and trying to peek around corners. Gives you a sense of how little they are and how interested they are in the world, how curious they are. This little tiny sketch you see right now is one of the few images of one in flight I was able to find. And the pencil doesn't really do it justice, but all the little trailing edges of the feathers kind of curled in the air. Made it look like they almost had, well, permed feathers. If you take a look at my black swan image, you might see a little bit of curved feathers, but I didn't take the time to draw each individual curl, just because that amount of detail isn't really helpful. I sort of sketched in some of it to give you an idea of it, but you know, just a hinting, a little idea is more than enough. You might see there's a lot of shaking in the camera. Sorry about that. I'll be working on trying to figure out a better solution for technology. You could even see off to the left the cable stretching out to my easel. For the moment, my poor little webcam is actually stuck to an IKEA lamp with rubber bands. But you do what you gotta do. The image I'm working on right now, the bird is stretched up very, very tall, and again he's got that little head tilt, so you're seeing more of a flare of the throat and the underside of the beak. There's a lot of the birds grasping onto branches, and I was trying my best to not pick images where they're grounded. I was sort of wanting to do animals sort of in space on their own, but sometimes with those cute little grasping feet with their little claws, they need to be holding on to something. Again, it's sort of the posture of the critter. Again, if you look at the black swan image, the toes are all stretched out because they're mostly splayed on the ground or swimming or flying. But these little birds look like they're happier on branches and happier holding on to something. This little one I'm drawing right now didn't actually make it, sadly, into the inking. It was one of the few images I found of it feeding its young, but it just looked a little too weird. Right now, you're seeing me arguing with my light box. I don't always use my light box, but it's a handy dandy tool for when you're wanting to get nice lines without having to fuss too terribly much. Generally, I prefer to either do the pencil lines straight onto paper and then watercolor on top of that, or I'll ink right on top of the pencil. But the goal with this, eventually, is I'd actually like to turn all of these into a coloring book. And making use of the light box is just one step easier for me in the grand scheme of things. The nice thing about the light box, which doesn't really look like a benefit right at the beginning, is that you'll notice that the line work is actually fairly faint. Now, I could have made it darker. I could have used a darker pencil. I could have used a mechanical pencil. I could have gone for thick, dark graphite, but I consider this a feature, not a bug. I've spent a couple hours studying the birds. I've spent some time doing lots of sketches. I've gotten the gestures. I've trained my subconscious. And now I'm making use of it. Right now I can't actually see the whole thing, but I've got a hint, I've got an inkling, and I'm letting my brain fill in all the details. It's a way of me simplifying it just enough. Now, It might look a little bit cluttered for a coloring book, but I figured it would be a little bit more interesting to show lots of different postures of the bird versus just doing one and doing lots of detailed feathers, although I've done a little bit of that too. At least here and there are some of the birds. For me, one of my challenges is actually trying to draw simple. Realistic, that's easy, but going simple and still getting the spirit of the critter is much more challenging. I particularly like this particular drawing. Looks like he snagged a grape or some other little fruit. And, well, again, leaning towards the corvid, the nod to the corvid. And snagging something delightful is definitely in character for them. And hey, everybody wants a nice little bit of fruit here and there, right? Guess I should do a little note on what kind of tools I'm using. That blue pencil is a Staedtler Maxi. It's actually a little bit extra wide, which makes it a little bit more comfortable for the hands. And on that note, I would highly recommend everybody get up and stretch your hands, stretch your necks. I think the rule of thumb is every 20 minutes of sitting staring at a computer screen or sitting staring at your art or reading, you should look at something about 20 feet away for about 20 seconds. Give your muscles a break, give your eye muscles a break too. I'm as somebody who's had bifocals since 4th grade. Doing little exercises like that are sort of second nature. Also helps some ADD. I can't really stare at anything for a long time. And notice I'm going flip, 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 flip. This is the really nice thing. Oh, there's a stretch. Here's the nice thing about using the light box. Since I'm trying my best to fit as many birds as I can without overlapping them on a 9x12 sheet of watercolor paper, I can decide, okay, this bird doesn't quite fit. How about this one? How about this one? How about this one? Until I find the one that fits right in the right spot. It does mean that some of my sketches end up not making the cut, but that's okay. Flip, flip, flip. It's gonna fit. Are you gonna fit? Oh, sure. How about you? How about you? I decided on the long thin one, but now I gotta figure out, okay, how do I fit the other ones in? Down there, all up there, up there. There we go. Again, I've got that little head tilt, so the eye is up high, it's a little bit more oblong. Get the sense that he's looking off to something away and down from us. Or maybe above him, can't quite tell. Tall, thin bird, again, doing that little head tilt. I really liked how a lot of these birds are sort of grasping very tightly onto their little branches and then reaching up or reaching off to the side. Not very corvid-like, but that's okay. Definitely bird of paradise-like. So eventually, all these will get compiled. I'll have a nice little coloring book that I can do with whatever I'm going to do with. I haven't quite decided yet. And since the ink I used for this is a Tombow pen, brush pen from Japan, it's actually waterproof and oil-proof. Sorry, not oil-proof, alcohol-proof. I can actually make use of the watercolor paper itself and use these as coloring pages as well.